Okay, let's unpack this. Just imagine for a second, you're looking at a situation where the very people sworn to uphold justice, judges, are themselves facing some really serious allegations.
Yeah, it can definitely shake your faith a bit, can it?
It really can.
Yeah.
But it also shines a bright light on just how critical judicial integrity actually is. So today, we're diving deep into two, well, distinct but honestly pretty fascinating cases of alleged judicial misconduct, both right here in Florida.
And these aren't just, dry legal filings.
Not at all. They're stories that touch on intense political campaigns, the really strict rules around confidential information, and the tricky ethical landscape judges have to navigate every day.
Exactly.
Our mission here, we've sifted through your sources, investigative reports, court docs, news articles, to pull out the most important bits. We'll look at the specific accusations, the legal outcomes, or, where things stand now.
And really dig into what these situations mean for the judiciary, sure, but also for you, the public.
Right, because everyone relies on that fair and trusted system.
What's really striking, I think, is how these two cases, they both involve alleged misconduct by judges in Florida, but they present such different challenges legally and ethically.
How so?
Well, one's a closed civil case, done deal, legally speaking. The other, that's an active criminal investigation, still very much ongoing.
Okay, so very different paths.
Very different. We'll get into the specifics of each, but also, pull back to see the bigger picture, help you understand not just what happened, but why it matters so much for the trust we all need to have in our legal system.
All right, let's start with the one that's wrapped up then, the civil case.
Sounds good.
This one involves allegations against Circuit Judge Casey Woolsey and her husband, Joshua Woolsey. And it all stems from a, pretty heated judicial election campaign back in 2022.
Right. And the players, you've got Jane Doe, who was a former assistant state attorney running against Casey Woolsey.
And Casey Woolsey, who was also a prosecutor at the time, ran, won, and is now serving as a circuit judge.
Yeah. And if you look at the broader context, this case really highlights just how intense political campaigns can get, especially judicial races,
Yeah.
There's often this expectation of maybe a higher standard of conduct.
Different expectations.
Totally. So the allegations, according to the civil lawsuit filed in federal court, Jane Doe claimed the Woolseys knowingly made false and defamatory statements about her during that election.
And there was one particularly sensitive part, wasn't there?
There was. A really central accusation was that they publicly revealed her status as an alleged victim of a past sexual assault.
Wow.
And get this, it was apparently an assault that Casey Woolsey herself had been involved in prosecuting when she was an assistant state attorney.
Okay, that adds another layer entirely. Bringing up someone's deeply personal trauma, especially something you were professionally involved in prosecuting in a political campaign.
It raises serious questions, doesn't it? Regardless of the legal outcome, just the ethics of using that kind of information.
Definitely. And the lawsuit claimed they didn't just reveal it.
No, it went further. It alleged they implied Jane Doe had actually lied about the assault, maybe for personal gain, and that they spread these statements around publicly and to other people specifically to hurt her reputation and credibility as a candidate.
Just trying to damage her chances.
Seems like it. And one detail from the sources that really jumps out there were apparently campaign flyers.
What about them?
They allegedly use a picture of Jane Doe dressed up for Halloween as a hippie, apparently. But critically, the flyers also prominently displayed the confidential case number from a past legal proceeding involving her, an injunction petition.
A confidential case number?
Yeah.
On a campaign flyer?
That's what was alleged. An injunction petition, it's a formal court request using that confidential number. Well, one source called it the ultimate form of mudslinging.
I can see why. And there was something else about Judge Woolsey's background mentioned.
Right. Separate but relevant. The sources note she was actually reprimanded by the Florida Supreme Court just last year.
For what?
For misleading social media users during a previous election campaign. So there was sort of a history there regarding campaign conduct.
Okay, so a lot of serious allegations. What actually happened when this went to court? This specific defamation lawsuit, Jane Doe v. Casey Woolsey et al.
It moved through the federal court system. And in April 2024, the judge, U.S. District Judge Timothy Corrigan, made a decision.
Which was?
He granted the Woolseys' motion to dismiss the case, and importantly, with prejudice.
Okay, with prejudice. Remind us what that means legally.
It's crucial. It means the dismissal is permanent. Jane Doe cannot bring these same claims back to court again. It's over.
So how could allegations like that, revealing victim status, using confidential case numbers, How could that get dismissed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it comes down to a really key legal concept. The court found that Jane Doe, because she was running for judicial office, qualified as a limited-purpose public figure.
A public figure, even if just for the campaign.
Okay.
And that matters because...
It matters hugely in defamation law. For any public figure, limited purpose, or otherwise to win a defamation case, they have to prove something called actual malice.
Actual malice. That sounds serious. What does it mean in practice?
It's a really high bar. It doesn't just mean the statements were nasty or false. It means you have to prove the person making the statement either knew it was false when they said it,
Okay.
or they acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true or false. Like they had serious doubts about its truthfulness, but published it anyway.
So basically, you have to show they were deliberately lying or incredibly careless about the truth.
Pretty much. And the judge looked at Jane Doe's complaint and ruled that essentially it falls short of alleging plausible claims for defamation because it didn't sufficiently allege that level of actual malice.
Even with the sensitivity of the information.
Even then, the statements made during a political campaign about a public figure candidate were ultimately deemed protected by the First Amendment. Free speech in political debate gets very strong protection.
Making it really tough for public figures to win these cases.
Notoriously difficult unless that actual malice standard is clearly met.
Yeah.
So, the end result, federal lawsuit closed. Judge Casey Woolsey remains on the circuit court bench.
Okay. A complex outcome based on a high legal standard. Now let's shift gears, as you said, to the other case.
Right. The ongoing.
This one involves an active criminal investigation. Totally different footing.
Completely.
And the focus here is St. Johns County Judge Ryan Willingham, elected in 2020, and he's actually running for re-election in 2026. And the core allegation is, well, it sounds serious, misusing his judicial authority to get and spread confidential information from a sealed court case. And the alleged reason, to damage a political opponent.
That's the allegation. And what makes this particularly concerning is, well, first, the nature of the alleged misconduct itself, but also the kinds of laws it might break.
Okay, tell us more. What are the specifics here?
So, back in March 2025, an attorney in the area, Alex A.J. Balaco, who, not coincidentally, has filed to run against Judge Willingham in 2026, filed a formal complaint.
The opponent filed the complaint?
The opponent, yes. And the complaint alleges that Judge Willingham accessed a closed dependency court case.
Dependency court. What does that usually involve?
These are highly confidential cases involving child welfare. Think abuse, neglect, abandonment. They are sealed under Florida law precisely to protect the privacy and safety of the children involved. It's about shielding vulnerable kids and families from further harm or stigma.
Okay, so accessing that is already a big deal.
A very big deal. Then the complaint alleges Judge Willingham took documents from this sealed file and distributed them to someone else, identified as a political ally and a former law partner of the judge.
Okay, so taking sealed documents about child welfare and giving them to a political ally. Why? What was allegedly in those documents?
That's the core of it. The documents reportedly had protected information about A.J. Balaco, the opponent. But critically, they also allegedly contained identifying details and information about an alleged victim of a sexual assault connected to that dependency case.
Another situation involving alleged disclosure of sexual assault victim information?
It appears so, according to the complaint. And the alleged motive was stated pretty clearly: to dig up dirt on Balaco, damaging information that could be used in the upcoming election campaign against him.
Wow. So you have the alleged misuse of judicial power, accessing sealed files meant to protect children, and then potentially exposing victim information, all for political gain.
That's the scenario laid out in the complaint. It really brings together concerns about judicial power, confidentiality, and political ambition in a very troubling way.
So, if this is proven true, what are the potential consequences for Judge Willingham? This sounds like more than just a civil matter.
Oh, absolutely. The potential stakes are much, much higher here. We're talking possible criminal violations.
Like what?
Things like misuse of public office, official misconduct, which is a very serious charge for a public official, and potentially unlawful disclosure of confidential juvenile information under Florida law.
Official misconduct. That sounds particularly serious for a judge.
It is. It implies a deliberate abuse of the power and trust that comes with the position. That's quite different from the defamation standard we talked about earlier.
And ethically.
A clear potential breach of the Florida Code of Judicial Conduct. Canon 1, upholding the integrity of the judiciary, and Canon 2, avoiding impropriety or even the appearance of impropriety. These are fundamental rules for judges.
And what about the victim whose information was allegedly shared?
That's another critical layer. It's potentially a violation of the alleged sexual assault victim's rights under Florida's Marsy's Law.
Marsy's Law.
Yeah.
Remind us of what that does.
It's a state constitutional amendment that gives crime victims specific rights, including the right to privacy and to be protected from harassment. Disclosing information that could identify or locate them could absolutely fall under that.
So, serious potential violations on multiple fronts. Criminal, ethical, and victims' rights. Given all that, what's the official response been?
Well, things moved quickly. The local state attorney's office recused itself, stepped away, because it involved a sitting judge in their circuit. Standard procedure to avoid conflicts of interest.
Makes sense. So who took it up?
The complaint was sent to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the FDLE. That's the state-level agency.
Yeah, have they done anything?
Yes. The FDLE has publicly confirmed they've opened an active criminal investigation.
Okay, so it's formally being investigated as a potential crime. What has Judge Willingham said?
Through his lawyer, he's denied any criminal wrongdoing. The defense argument seems to be that he provided a public document disputing its confidentiality from a case that wasn't even before him, just sharing it with a colleague for a second opinion.
So questioning the nature of the document and his intent.
Exactly. Challenging both the confidentiality claim and the idea that there was any malicious or improper motive.
And where does it stand right now?
It's an ongoing criminal investigation by the FDLE. Crucially, no charges have been filed at this point. And Judge Willingham is still on the bench hearing cases.
Still presiding. Okay. So let's step back now and look at these two cases together.
Yeah, the contrast is really interesting when you put them side by side.
It really is. You have judges or judicial candidates tangled up in political campaigns, allegations of misusing sensitive information.
Including, in both cases, information about alleged sexual assault victims.
Right. And allegedly using that information to gain some kind of political advantage. The paths they took legally are just worlds apart.
Completely. One ends up dismissed in civil court based on First Amendment protections for political speech about public figures, even if the speech feels way over the line ethically to many people.
Because of that high actual malice standard.
Exactly. The other triggers a full-blown criminal investigation focused on potential abuse of judicial power and breach of statutory confidentiality laws. Different conduct, different legal frameworks.
So what connecting these dots really highlights isn't just civil versus criminal, but maybe that line between protected, though potentially nasty, political speech and actual illegal conduct or abuse of office.
I think that's a great way to put it. The Woolsey case shows how much leeway the First Amendment gives in political debate, making defamation hard to prove for public figures. The Willingham investigation, though, focuses on whether specific actions accessing sealed records, distributing them, crossed legal and ethical lines tied directly to the judge's official position and duties.
Duties like protecting confidential information.
Precisely. It really underscores the dual roles judges have: citizens with speech rights, yes, but also officers of the court with immense power and a duty to protect sensitive information and the integrity of the process. Sometimes those things can seem in conflict.
So for you, the listener, what's the big takeaway here? Why should you care about these specific Florida cases?
It's about understanding that critical balance we all depend on. The balance between free speech, which is vital in politics, and the absolute need to protect confidential information, especially for vulnerable people like kids in dependency cases or victims of assault.
And it's about trust, right?
Absolutely. Maintaining public trust in the judiciary. It shows why the ethical and legal standards for judges are, and need to be, incredibly high, both on and off the bench. Seeing how these systems work, or allegedly fail, helps you understand why those standards matter so much.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean? It feels like it means the judiciary, like any powerful institution, is going to face scrutiny, and that transparency and accountability are just essential.
Couldn't agree more.
We've really gotten into the weeds today, the nuances of defamation law, that actual malice hurdle, the tight seal around certain court cases, and the really serious fallout when allegations arise that someone in power misused that power.
Especially when it involves leveraging sensitive information.
Right. So maybe we leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Yeah, here's something to consider. We live in this age of constant information, right? And political competition is fiercer than ever.
Definitely.
So the question is, How do we as a society make sure that the drive to win public office, especially an office like a judgeship, doesn't end up undermining the very principles it's supposed to protect? Principles like justice, privacy, basic ethical conduct.
How do we protect the process itself while people are competing within it?
Exactly. It's a tough question, and it's one that's constantly shaping our legal and political world. Something definitely worth thinking about long after this deep dive is over.